Officially, the HarmonyOS 7 beta changelog does not talk about camera changes, but I have the Mate 80 Pro Max here and want to see if maybe there are some changes. So let's get started. Front-facing video here, we can go to the ultra-wide angle so you see where I am in a nice, beautiful park here. And yeah, this is the front-facing video here, 4K 30 frames per second is what I record with. And do we notice any big improvements here on the front-facing video? I doubt it. I don't think that they changed much here. It was already very, very good. If we go to 1x here, it is still good, even though lens flare and HDR might be better on some other devices. It's still a very, very solid device for vlogging if you want to use the front-facing video. If you want to rely on the back-facing cameras, the main camera here, we still have the variable aperture. Of course, it is working as we used to. So f2 is the mostly the aperture that it takes here. We have this very nice background blur as well, good HDR with the sun in the background. And we can go also to the ultra-wide angle, which is very wide with 12 millimeters even. So this is a pretty wide ultra-wide angle, which can show everything of my surroundings here, which is quite cool. And yeah, that is working pretty solidly. Stabilization should work solidly. We know this already. Do we notice any improvements in terms of lens switching? Let's try it out here with a little bit of a zoom test. So we're coming here to our television tower here in Wesel, and we want to check how the zoom quality is. So let's go to 2x. It's pretty smooth. 4x, very smooth as well. And 10x, switch lenses again. It is very, very smooth. We can go even further, 12.4x, 15x, and 20x, and even 30x. Just for pressing a button here. And now back to 10x. And back to the ultra-wide angle. You see, even when I'm recording at 4K 30 frames per second, it's working quite well here on this one. And what do you think about the vlog capabilities of the Mate 80 Pro Max? I think it's pretty good. It is almost on top there, sitting with the best. It's just the main camera sensor. When I switch to it, this is 1/1.28 inch size sensor. And I think that the Pure 80 Ultra with its 1-inch type sensor is, even though this one has RWB, has a variable aperture, I think the 1-inch type sensor gives you a little bit more, especially when it comes to lower light situations. In this situation, when the sun is still out, summer, with those late evenings, the sun is like shining almost all the time and everything is very bright still outside, even when it comes to night kind of conditions, probably no issue at all. And now we want to do some photos. I will take some photos here, few maybe in the park and some others somewhere else, but I have to compare it to something, otherwise it's boring just showing you photos and I don't have like a before set of photos before HarmonyOS 7, because I didn't expect camera updates, but people were asking me. So I thought maybe get this bad boy out and compare the Oppo Find X9 Ultra and its camera performance with the Mate 80 Pro Max to see if we spot the same differences that we spot earlier. Actually, I don't even know if I compared them already officially. Just let's do it for fun. Let's check out the photos. We start off with the ultra-wide angle. It's a wider field of view on the Mate 80 Pro Max than on the Find X9 Ultra. On first glance, they're pretty similar. There's a bit of a difference in terms of how blue the sky is on the Find X9 Ultra, where here we have a gradually whiter blue and going to darker blue. Here it seems to be one blue kind of sky on the Find X9 Ultra. That's quite interesting. So that's the basic only difference there that I saw. When we zoom in, we see that we have a bit of more sharpening applied on the Huawei. HDR, I think both are very identical. I don't see much of a difference between those two. I think in terms of ultra-wide angle, yeah, maybe towards the edges, it's getting a little bit more soft here on the Huawei and less detailed there than on the Oppo. But we have a wider field of view on the Huawei. So yeah, that's about it. So almost identical between those two. And the same I could say also for the main camera sensor, at least in this situation, it's looking very identical. The Huawei again a bit with more over sharpening going on, so everything is sharp and appears to be a bit sharper, more natural on the Oppo for sure. In terms of detail levels, both are identical, so it's not like you see lots more details on the Huawei comparison to the Oppo or vice versa. it's basically identical. The focal length is a little bit different, but that's about it. I like that, yeah, it's not so blended over here on the Oppo, where on the Huawei, because of everything over sharpened a little bit, or more sharper than on the Oppo, has a bit of a smartphone-ish look in comparison. Close-ups are quite interesting because both can utilize their telesensors for macro. We have large telesensors on both, but the one on the Oppo is larger than the one on the Mate. And the Mate can get very nice shots here, but the Oppo is no slouch either and can get also very nice shots. As you see here, this is the focus point. This is sharp. This is already not sharp this here as well. Quite interesting. We can get a bit closer on the Mate. That's about it. And then this telesensor shot is quite interesting because both utilize their telesensors, but there's a second telesensor on the Mate, where on the Oppo it is the primary telesensor that we have here. Basically, it has also two, but it's the first one, the larger one, because the second one is a 10x. And this is not a 10x zoom shot. This is like 5x, I think, or 6x, something like this. But both are very identical there most of the time. You see, if you want to see real difference, you see it here, the brickwork, for example. Huawei has to process a lot, has a smaller sensor, and doesn't have so much detail as the Oppo has. And the same goes for the fence there, where you can see there's a big difference. We have more detail there on the Oppo for sure. So the Oppo is winning there in terms of detail levels. Look at this car, look at the lines there of the car, almost like gone on the Huawei. The Huawei is pretty good with its processing there in like making it seem on par, but it's not. Selfies is quite interesting because here I don't see much of a difference at daylight, at least. Both are almost identical there. Maybe a bit more contrasty look on the Huawei, but that's about it. And a bit, maybe a bit sharper as well, but it's artificial sharpening that they apply, but basically the rest is identical between those two. It's just like, again, the HDR being a bit different. Here completely blue, where here we have a gradual more white and then it's turning into blue. Yeah, you be the judge which one you like better there. And then this 10x shot, on first glance also, because Huawei is using its 6x sensor and cropping in to 10x, and Oppo is using its dedicated 10x. Not much of a difference between those two. Just a bit warmer colors on the Mate, where it's a bit colder on the Oppo. Actually, the Oppo more accurate in this regard. But yeah, if you go in here, the sharpening is helping, the processing is helping Huawei tremendously. But it is artificial looking here in comparison to the Oppo. And when you look at the real details, the Oppo has more details there and is looking less artificial than the Huawei is doing, especially here at the wall. The Huawei doesn't have the information that the wall is not completely flat. It's flattening out everything. Here you can see the texture of the wall that was definitely there on the wall itself. And yeah, the rest is looking very, very interesting here. Very close actually, but you see in the little details that the Huawei is losing against the Oppo. Also at this shot here, 35mm cropping in onto the main camera sensor, because we have to find a difference between them, and I have to justify a little bit my scoring from my previous shot, and I wanted to also check if something has improved on the Mate 80 Pro Max. And when we go in here and go in here, you will see that the textures also here on the ground, especially on the Oppo, is there, where here everything is smoothened out on the Huawei. Yeah, sometimes I would say here the processing on the Huawei a bit better to read those texts here, where the Oppo is struggling a little bit. On the other hand, I think the detail level here, look at the Mercedes logo there, and here, the detail level on the Oppo is a slightly bit better. So yes, we have a better main camera sensor there on the Oppo. It's only by a slight margin, but it is there. That you can see that it's a better sensor there. And I think the most obvious thing would be at night. I didn't take night photos here, just the daylight shots there, but nothing much has changed. Portraits, both are pretty fantastic, but you see that the Oppo does the portrait a little bit more justified because it's not brightening up the face, an issue that Oppo plagued in the past, especially with the selfie camera. I know people reporting about it, but Huawei is brightening up the face a little bit. In this case, like the donkey's face here. But the detail levels are, of course, over sharpening a little bit. And here I like the more natural approach, which is still sharp, still the same kind of detail level, but yeah, less over-processed looking on the Oppo. So slight win there for the Oppo. This is quite interesting overshot 10x shot on both, and I think both struggle a little bit with focusing. So I think they're focusing on the back there and didn't focus on this figure there. I tried a different position there, besides the blue being bluer here on the Huawei, and a bit more warmish and yellowish there on the Oppo, which is not so true. I think here the Huawei has a more correct colors. I think both, again, are a bit struggling. The Huawei appears to be sharper here because it is applying more sharpening. That's basically about it. So both can struggle in terms of sharpening and sharpness and getting the shot in focus. Macro shots at 10x, which is also possible. Dedicated lens on the Find X9 Ultra, but it's not using the dedicated lens. You see f2.2, it's cropping in on the very large telezoom sensor. Where here, I think it's also not utilizing the second telesensor. It's cropping in onto the first telesensor, and you see that we have more detail levels there on the Oppo, thanks to its larger sensor. And it's close, but it's still, I think, the Oppo winning here for sure. So in terms of pictures, I see some improvements on the Mate 80 Pro Max, but they're not so huge to justify raising some points tremendously on the Mate 80 Pro Max. I see good points on the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, of course, also after tons of updates, but it remains in this comparison still the king over the Mate 80 Pro Max, with more natural shots, less over sharpening or artificial-like shots, less brightening on faces on portraits. So yes, overall, Mate 80 Pro Max is a very solid photography machine, but the Oppo is better.